Tonight, I ask more of America's business leaders to follow John's lead. Do what you can to raise your employees' wages. To every mayor, governor, state legislator in America, I say, you don't have to wait for Congress to act. Americans will support you if you take this on. And as a chief executive, I intend to lead by example. Profitable corporations like Costco see higher wages as the smart way to boost productivity and reduce turnover. We should too. In the coming weeks, I will issue an executive order requiring federal contractors to pay their federally funded employees a fair wage of at least $10.10 an hour, because if you cook our troops' meals or wash their dishes, you should not have to live in poverty.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. From what I understand about that executive order, it won't kick in till about 2015. It's not going to affect many employees anyway. Many of them are already making that minimum or more. But that was the President, State of the Union, joining us now to talk about it, give us his take as the founder and president of the very influential Americans for Tax Reform. We welcome in Grover Norquist. Hello, Grover.
Hey, good to be with you.
Good to talk to you again. Okay, so on economic issues, I mean, he did actually call for lower tax rates on corporations, if I was hearing him correctly. Did I?
Yes and no. What he did is what he's done for the last several years. He is for tax reform, but it has to increase the total tax burden by $1 trillion at least over a decade, sometimes $1.4 trillion. He's willing to cut rates on corporations, but eliminate deductions and credits that companies get, and that small businesses that aren't incorporated, like a partnership or an LLC, or they call them subchapter S.
Right.
They're about 2 to 3 million C corporations, and there are about 30 million S corporations or partnerships. So 30 million businesses will get tax increases because their rates stay the same. They've got the personal rates that the president raised in the past. And then General Motors will lose some of its deductions and credits but get lower rates. So this is a massive tax increase on small businesses. It is sort of break even on big businesses. And then he wants to take all that lovely money, $1 trillion at least over the next decade. He hasn't spelled it out, but every time he tells Congress what he wants, it's $1 trillion over a decade. $100 billion tax increase every year, all out of the hide of small businesses, while the larger companies will have something like break even.
So what was your takeaway from this? I mean, just more of the same, nothing new from your standpoint, from what you were looking to hear? I mean, nothing encouraging at all, I guess.
Nothing encouraging, and it was more of the same. He has said everything that he said last night before. Here's the difference. For the first 2 years of his presidency, in all of 2009 and in all of 2010, now they're 365 days in a year, so that's 730 days.
Right.
2 years, 730 days. He woke up in the morning, and he didn't do a single thing that he talked about last night. And then he went to bed at night. And then the next day, he woke up and he didn't do a single thing they talked about last night, and he went to bed. Now, if somebody told you that they're planning on going to the gym and getting in shape, but for 730 days in a row, a car shows up in front of their house and they don't get in it to go
and the
to gym.
Significance of you talking about the first 2 years, I would assume, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is he could have done something because he had the Democratic House and Senate.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And those 2 years, he's bragging now, I'm going to do this stuff by executive order. I don't need a stinking Constitution in Congress. Okay, well, he could have done that then. But he could have actually passed any of the things he mentioned last night into law, because he had 59, 60 senators, and he had overwhelming majority in the House. That to-do list of his that he bravely announced he was going to do, because he's not going to sit there or he's going to do stuff. He could have had Congress pass any and all of that in the first 2 years. Why didn't he? One, if he believed for a moment that the list of things he talked about would actually help the economy, he would have done it, because he was trying to get reelected in 2012, and he wanted a stronger economy. He knows perfectly well that raising the minimum wage causes unemployment to go up. I was on CNN with Krugman, and it didn't come up, but I had my little stack of Krugman statements and essays and others all pointing out that you raise the minimum wage, people lose their jobs. And we all know this. Anybody knows this, he says. Any economist knows that. Well, none of the economists who would well, the economists who advised the president not to do it when he could, they knew it would have killed even more jobs than the stimulus and other stuff did. So it's the president wanted to talk about income inequality. Why? Because he wanted to change the topic from his 50 years of failure with the Great Society and the welfare state, 50 years of the war on poverty. We have as large a percentage of the population as poor today as then, according to government statistics. So $15 trillion down the toilet, nothing to show for it. It's all same poverty's at the same level. You don't get people jobs and self-sufficiency and progress and create wealth through welfare. But I want to talk about 50 years of failure and how the government can't make people successful. And then there's 5 years in which he said, but I can create jobs. You know how I do that? I take money from Fred and I give it to Mary, and I want you to look at Mary when I say now she has a job. You took the money from Fred. Yeah. Don't look at Fred. Look at Mary.
Right.
I'm going to take a bucket of water out of one side of a river, one side of a lake, and I'll walk around the other side of the lake and have MSNBC film my pouring the water into the lake, and I will be stimulating the lake to great depths, okay? And you say, well, how will this work? And I will say, well, I'm going to do it 800 billion times. And so the lake will get very deep as I do this. Of course, it's nonsense. And when he did it with $800 billion of other people's money, some of it borrowed from China. Oops, sorry, China, we wasted all your money. We didn't get more jobs. So he don't want to talk about the jobs that aren't there. I don't want to talk about the fact that the real unemployment level is 10.8% if you count the people who say they're looking and can't get jobs and the people who are of working age but just quit looking. Okay, they didn't turn 65. They're still in their 30s and 40s and 50s. Says, I'm not looking anymore because I can't find anything. That's not a lower unemployment rate. That's a worse unemployment rate. 10.8% is the real unemployment rate that we have today, and that has not gotten better.
And you look at the left will attribute the drop off in the workforce participation to the lowest point in decades to baby boomers retiring. But as you point out, that's not the case. And when you talk about giving from Mary to pay Paul or whatever, people who have lost their jobs and then found these newly created jobs. They can't live on that. And now they're going to be forced to, if they want health care, to pay premiums and deductibles that they can't afford. I mean, I talk about this so much, I start scaring myself. How are we going to get out of this?
Well, the good news is we're a fundamentally strong economy, and the American people are hardworking despite the best efforts of the government to beat that out of them. And we just need to hang on for 3 more years and get it. Different president and a different Senate to turn the country around. We do have a cap on total discretionary spending thanks to the sequester going out 10 years. So as long as we have the House or the Senate or the presidency, we can stop that cap from growing. There was some concern that the cap was a little rough on defense, and some of our appropriators might join with the Democrats and betray us and break the sequester itself. The head of the Armed Services Committee said he wanted to destroy the sequester.
Right.
Well, he didn't, and he's leaving at the end of this year. So I think we have a Republican Party now united that we stopped the little decline the first year, but there'll be slower growth for all spending, including defense, and we can live with that out the next 10 years and hold it. So there's a limit to how much damage Obama can do. He wants to do executive orders, these little edicts. Well, anything that he puts in with a pen, the next president can take out with a pen.
Right.
And we need to start now to just make sure we know how to dot the I's and cross the T's. Reagan, when he came in, undid with a stroke of the pen the price controls on energy, and energy prices didn't go up. They went down because everybody went out and explored for more energy because there weren't going to be caps on prices. They didn't want to go look for something if they, people don't build apartment buildings if you have rent control.
Yeah.
You get rid of rent control, everybody builds buildings.
Yeah.
And so rents go down. I mean, it's a little counterintuitive, I suppose, but when you put caps on things, you don't get more supply.
We're talking to Grover Norquist here on the Steve Malzberg Show. One more for you, or maybe two. The debt ceiling, I heard over the weekend people like Mitch McConnell saying, we have to get something in return. But here's the same guy who waved the white flag and said, "Oh, we'll never do this again." So I'm very confused about what the Republican strategy is. Obama will not budge. He will give them nothing, and he will laugh all the way to the polls with the rest of the party if they, of course, they won't be shutting the government down, but the media will tell you they will. So what do you think they're going to do?
Well, one, you have to go into there saying our goal is not to shut the government down. There were some people in the last shutdown who sounded like they were enthusiastic about the idea of a shutdown. Now, part of that's the establishment press being a little disingenuous. Other, it's some of our guys being a little excitable. And
disingenuous press, I'm shocked.
Yes, I know. I hate to disappoint those of you listeners for whom this is news. But you walk in and say, we're not going to shut the government down. You say it 1,000 times, which is what we said when we won the sequester. We're not going to shut the government down. We're not going to shut the government down. We're not going to shut the government down. And we walked away with $2 trillion in savings and a sequester and real budget caps as part of a deal. You don't run in going, hey, we should shut the government down. Anyone who doesn't want to shut the government down is a rhino. And then go, hey, why do people think I want to shut the government down? Because that's all you talked about for the last 3 months. So I think it's wise to say we're not going to shut the government down. He might. We won't. And there are some things that even the president can't pass the laugh test with the press. We might take in some of the changes he's made to Obamacare, like delays, and put them into law.
All right.
Now, is he going to shut down the government because we made his illegal delays legal? That's a little tough to even the New York Times might have trouble with that.
That's a good one. That's a good way to end the conversation. Grover, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good with you.
Take care. Grover Norquist, ladies and gentlemen, founder and president of Americans for Tax Reform, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Okay, Andrea Mitchell needs a history lesson, and we're going to give Andrea Mitchell a history lesson when we come back right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.